The future of software engineering job market in 2026. So the thing is, there are two conflicting signals of the same market. One, you hear that there's AI urgency everywhere, right? But at the same time, fewer people are hiring and there's more layoffs. CEOs are chanting AI nonstop everywhere in every meeting, in every communication. Board meetings, AI is a priority, earning calls, there's always an AI narrative to help make things more efficient. I've been building software for over 2 decades. I have a computer science degree, graduated with honors. I specialize in AI and machine learning. And I've built AI for Apple Vision Pro. I have built AI for self-driving car that actually drove on a closed test circuit. And also companies like Apple, Google, Meta, Netflix, they've headhunted me without me actually applying. And the thing is about all this is that I have to say that software engineering, as we know it, is dying. But at the same time, it's also becoming the biggest opportunity. So let me show you what's actually happening, which roles are at risk, which ones are about to explode, and exactly what you need to do to be on the right side of this shift. Let me start off by saying the old formula is broken. What the old career ladder looks like is that it used to be predictable, and you hear it all the time, especially in before the 2000s, and you hear it even on television all the time. Is go to school, get a degree, and life will be great, right? You basically go to school, get a degree, you learn, and if you're doing software engineering, you learn how to code, you get a job, then you climb the ranks over time, you become a senior, and life is great, right? The thing is, this formula is breaking in real time. Education, the cost of it is rising, and even once you graduate, openings and job opportunities are dropping significantly, right? In the past, you had juniors hiring and you used to have like 50 hires. Now that's becoming like 5. And sometimes it's even 0 hires. And I could say this for a fact because I know people in the industry, even interns, it's competitive to even get in if they do that at all. And they don't even offer them jobs. And even to get in, even as an intern, you still have to jump through hoops. In software engineering, they will expect you to do coding jams, and hackathons and things like that, and you have to kind of become notable and win those. So you have to jump through a lot of hoops to get noticed, to get it inside, to be considered, to work for 3-4 months on an internship, and they don't even hire you at the end or have even any intention of hiring you, right? So the thing is not that it's less work available, it's just that the work has changed. It's different work, right? So the nature of the task is shifting, and AI is basically changing that workflow. So personally, I've learned a lot of different disciplines. So my personal transition, I worked in Hollywood films and films such as Avatar and AAA games in 3D. So I worked at the EA and even got patents for my design. And what I've seen, there's skills, projects, and you have to basically prove yourself even when you enter with your entry into the business. You have to prove yourself to be known that you could actually finish a real project, right? Now, the thing is, the same path still exists. You have to go prove yourself and make yourself work. It's just that it's a lot more narrow, right? There are fewer entry points to get in, and it's a higher bar of entry. Again, with things like AI, in the past, if you were going to be a software engineer, you had to know the basics and fundamentals of coding, and you have to be a master of that. Now you still have to know it, but because of AI, it's a lot easier to actually fill up that task. Everyone could get the job done on the basic level. So you have to be beyond that. So a lot of the people are and training pipelines. When I say training pipelines, like training materials or boot camps, schools, they're stuck in the past where, you go in and you do a lot of busy work and they're preparing you to do a lot of manual work. At the end, in the real world, that is disappearing. That style is disappearing. Think of it like this, as if in elementary or primary school, you learn how to do multiplication, long division, addition by hand, which is important to understand how it works. But when in real life, are you ever required to actually write out by hand to do long division unless you're going to teach it, right? In real life, you would use a calculator or use a programming language or coding to actually solve that for you. So yes, school should be teaching you these things, but the emphasis of that is a main skill set you need to know. That's the part that's missing. It's okay, this is how it works, so you understand how the fundamentals work. How do you actually use the tools such as AI tools to actually augment that and make you 10 times better, as opposed to you writing out by hand or using Excel or using AI or using a calculator or just coding in general to solve the problem. And degree itself is less important. What is more important is your capability actually solving the problem. I literally hired someone that is a legit rocket scientist. You always hear, oh, this is not rocket science. Well, I actually met as rocket scientists, and you have that stigma in your head, like, oh, these guys are ultra genius. And when you actually hire them, even the basic things they couldn't do. So just because they have the credentials of it, if they're not actually capable of doing the job, it doesn't matter as much, right? What you want are people who are able to solve the problems from end to end, from the concept to the completion of it. And nowadays, use AIs to do this effectively. Whereas doing it in the past might take you a long time, AI could do a lot of the busy work and get you to the finish line a lot quicker. What you want to do basically is compete beyond the model itself. Let me just read beyond the model. That's the main part of it. Plus a freelancer. What I mean by that is that if you could just hire like a freelancer and they could just use ChatGPT and get the job done, how are you different than anyone else? You have to differentiate yourself. You have to show your unique leverage and your judgment that actually brings value to the project. That's how you get differentiation, right? Your differentiation is actually how you execute and deliver on the final product. Basically, shipping real business value. You're delivering work outcomes. Basically, a job is expecting to get certain things done, and being able to achieve that is what's going to make you stand out. And that's what's a measurable and an impact that is really focused on what the business goals are. For example, the first AI job that I got was actually implementing papers, the algorithms and papers into AI models to predict the stock market. And how do you know if it worked? Well, if you give it to the portfolio manager and actually outperform whatever benchmark, let's say the S&P 500, then you know it worked, right? Anything less, you're not bringing to the business value. And it's going to be different for every business, but the main thing is you have to get the job done for it to be valuable, right? And the other thing as well is hiring shift, right? In the past, just because like 10 years ago, when AI and machine learning came about, being a machine learning engineer and deep learning engineer was great, but a lot of it was theoretical because you had credentials because you've done certain certifications or certain education and whatnot. Now it's not less about credentials, like I mentioned earlier about the whole person that's an actual rocket scientist, but actually is more about proof, like what actually have you done that is relative or related to what our business goals are, to prove that you actually could do that, right? So now people are looking at, okay, proof-based signals that, okay, you've done something similar from concept to completion that is related to what we're trying to do, then we're going to pay attention, as opposed to just having a list of like other certifications and education you have on it, right? So the job market is reshaping towards that goal, and that is the optics that you see that's out there right now. Which jobs are actually at risk? So this replacement question is not as simple as you expected, where, okay, what are the specific roles? Is it front-end engineer, back-end? Is it QA? It's not simple as that. The reality of it is a lot more nuanced and more uncomfortable. The thing is, AI kills shallow role versions. Basically, not the entire role itself, it's just versions of the role. If you think about it, maybe like more junior roles or anything that doesn't really have depth. Basically, if you are just doing like boilerplate stuff, copy and paste, ticket following without really thinking, no requirement questions, you just kind of like just go through the motions, no real critical thinking, like just filling out a template or like data entry, things like that. Basically, anyone who are copy paste devs are vulnerable, right? So if you don't actually understand what's going on and you go on Stack Overflow and you just copy and paste the answer but don't understand why, those are the type of job at risk, because more critical thinking is required for things to work out here. Now, the business problem devs are more resilient to this problem, mainly because they're able to take the requests that are like vague in problem description from biz dev people and be able to break that down and make architecture and design, have a design thinking to actually apply a way of getting the current, where they're currently starting points, inputs are, and getting to the final output that the business dev want, but not really describing in detail how they actually want to do it, right? That's where the value is. So you can hear this all the time. A lot of time, especially if there's like buzzwords, or we want to implement, you hear business development executives want to implement, or the leadership want to implement AI. And so their descriptions are very ambiguous. And you have to be able to navigate through that. And basically, you want to figure out trade-offs or under uncertainty, because that's the main thing. You're going to get a lot of uncertain answer, and you're able to get a tangible answer out of that, or basically uncertain requirements or requests. They just know they want a certain outcome, right? And at the end, the stakeholders alignment, basically what they want to find at the end. And if you could build a system that delivers on what they want, even though they don't know the details of exactly what it is they want, that's how you become valuable. Be able to have communication and shipping, no matter like having production ready delivery, works in real time, given their real constraints of it could be working on with a POS system, like a point of sale system, and things might not be consistent, but if you're able to get things to work in a consistent way, that would be useful to them. And actually have like practical builders, that those are the people, when I say practical builders, that actually not just theory, those are the ones that are actually building something that is tangible. Those are the ones that win in their career, not just the people who are just going over to Stack Overflow, copy and pasting boilerplate stuff. These are the things that company can't lose, because they don't want to lose these resources or these devs, because they're able to translate their business problem into a real practical solution here. So the thriving engineers, they're the ones who are using AI. They're not the ones, they don't fight it. They basically use AI to 10x their output with the tools. And how they're doing that, because they take the repetitive work and delegate that to the AI, which is pretty much how it works in software engineering. And a lot of it generally, when you start off, you're junior, doing a lot of legwork, a lot of busy work, but the more senior you become, or the one above you tell you what to do, the higher you move up the ranks, you're more directing people, and they're doing all the legwork, where you're the one kind of like orchestrating everything. You're doing the same type of thing where you're becoming more of like a director with using AI tools, and that's why the output is more like 10 times more with these tools, because you're directing it and the tools are doing a lot more of the legwork. This is also why a lot of companies are less likely to hire juniors or interns, because AI is now taking up that type of role. And what do you do if you already have a job? Well, the top priority, I would say, is actually to learn to do your job with AI, not in spite of AI. Basically work with it, not against it, or become resistant with it. So become AI leverage engineers. So basically make you more efficient with it, like as I mentioned earlier. So the not optimal in current market right now is not really great, because there's a hiring freeze, and that's increasing because the internal mandate is use AI. And I can tell you that for a fact, working with different contracts with companies, every one of them are like, how do we use AI? How do we make it more efficient? How do we increase our bottom line, our margins and whatnot, right? Slowdown becomes visible over time. So what that means is that you could have someone that says, okay, I'm not going to use AI at all. I'm going to do everything traditionally. It's kind of like someone saying, okay, I'm not going to use a calculator. I'm going to do the long division by paper or hand. I'm going to figure out how to do matrix multiplication and write it out by hand. So someone could take it to do a task, it take them 4 hours versus 30 minutes if they just use like AI tools. Over time, companies are going to notice that, and colleagues output comparison when they start doing reviews and seeing, okay, well, these two engineers have the same general output, but one takes 4 hours and the other takes 30 minutes. Over time, people are going to notice this stuff, right? And one thing I want to mention about efficiency and how companies are leveraging AI to do things faster and cheaper is the actual video game Clair Obscur Expedition 33. Recently, it won Game of the Year. It's a small team, 30 devs, but yet they're able to make a AAA game that is comparable and notably to Final Fantasy series, but yet they've done all the elements correctly. Now, the thing is about them, they openly said that they've selectively used AI to keep costs under $10 million. Now, granted, there are controversy about this. Like, for example, they just been stripped of one of the Game of the Years, like of an indie award, right? Because part of the mandate is like art. They don't want art done by AI. So that's another debate. But at the same time, players are complaining about how high prices our video games are, right? Or especially with like Nintendo, they release a game and games are like $99, right? And Nintendo openly mentioned in past articles that they're not using AI, they're going to do things traditionally, but there's a cost with this. Whereas you look at a company like Claire Obscure, they could have a dev of only 30 people, use some AI to keep costs under, and look at what was possible. Under normal circumstances, doing it traditionally would have been completely impossible, let alone compete with the genre or the company that invented that genre, right? Or pretty much made it famous or known for that genre, right? And now with it, it made it possible to keep it under the cost and do much better output, much better quality, and everything. So despite the controversy, there's a value to it, to the companies. And yes, in art, there's a controversy for that, but every other industry is trying to do the same thing because they're seeing the same type of results. And you're seeing things like doing repetitive tasks where doing it manually, let's say doing social media posts, creating them and then manually resizing them for all the different platforms could cost them like $20,000 just of like people hours of going through and manually do that stuff. Where when they start using AI tools, it reduced from $20K to like $500, right? Those are real savings at the end. Of course, the companies are going to look at it, and the ones who are against it, like Nintendo, for example, and want to do things manually, there's a cost of it, which is great. Now, if the players support that, that's good. But at the end of the day, if people are buying the cheaper, better, faster version of it, it's kind of hard to survive. So companies, whether they like it or not, have to seriously consider it. The skills that actually matter now, so mainly it's AI implementation, not necessarily just ChatGPT tricks where you just give a prompt. You want to actually be able to build products around existing models, meaning that in the past, like 10 years ago, you had to be a machine learning engineer. You actually had to train your models and then put it in inference. You need the data. Now, there's so many models that already exist. It's, as an AI engineer, you don't create the models. You just go out and use existing ones, right? And then the main thing is to have production integration, put into data pipelines, and then basically solve newly possible business problems that you couldn't solve before. That is what actually matters right now. And for you as an AI engineer, having domain expertise, that's going to be very helpful. That's your basically your superpowers, because domain depth is going to beat out generic coding any day. For example, I have Hollywood film and just general 3D and AAA game. That's my edge. So if I'm ever solving AI problems within that space, because I know it pretty well, I know how to design it, set it up, how it's supposed to interact in an actual production environment. Basically, domain plus AI equals premium value. There are very few who can code and have a deep understanding of your specific domain and implement AI solutions in that space. The combination makes you extremely valuable. Human skills, AI cannot copy. Basically, empathy, judgment, ethics, creativity, leadership, and like reading the room, like coming in a room with stakeholders that everyone's nervous because they don't know if they're going to deliver on time, being able to interpret the information and present it in a way to ease everyone. That is a skill set that humans bring to the table. And one of the meta skills that is very important in any domain, any industry, is being able to learn how to learn and to learn how to do it quickly, because tools change super fast. But like I said, I've done a computer science degree, and the things they taught you about technology, right? By the next year, it was already out of date. So you're hearing about certain things that will, like, let's say the class was just updated like this year or last year, and then you come this year and there's already a new AI model that put it out of date. So everything they're mentioning it already doesn't apply. So basically, you want to have just-in-time learning. So basically, learn what you need when you need it. And your main goal is to make sure you're able to ship to the final product to get it out there. That's the main metric. One thing I want to talk about is the rise of your personal brand, because now in the past, being a software engineer, your skill set of how well you could do certain coding or deliver on that used to be your differentiator. Now, because of AI, actual code and the syntax and different design patterns and all that of how that's done can be looked up easily. So that's not really the differentiator right now. Right now, what really matters is kind of like your personal brand. That is very underestimated because people follow people, not tools, right? So your reputation plus proof of things you've done, that would open doors. Because if your work is actually visible and you have a huge body of work, when projects come out and they're like, okay, we need these type of real results, and we're like, okay, well, this person have done these real projects, you're going to be top of mind in terms of that. Even if there's someone better than you, but if nobody knows they exist, it doesn't really matter, right? I've been headhunted mainly because of visibility, not necessarily applying, because either people recommend you and then when you look you up, you Google and you see all the things they've done, they're like, okay, well, this person might know what they're talking about, let me go talk to them, right? And the thing is about this as well is that you're not necessarily trying to be an influencer. So having a small audience is enough. It's much better to have, like, let's say 2,000 believers than you have a million followers, right? In fact, you don't even have to be that much. I've seen people have like just 10 followers, but in a certain space where they're like selling courses or whatnot, and they're pretty profitable about it, because 10 qualified people is much more important and much more valuable than a million people who are never going to buy, or in this case, never going to actually hire you, right? So if you could have a company where there's 2,000 people who are impressed with your work, it doesn't really matter. You only have to impress that one person, the hiring manager, right? And you want them to be able to trust your thinking, and having a brand out there, they already know what you're about. And they're like, okay, we want that type of person to work here, right? So how you would do it is you build your brand by actually documenting your work. You share your projects, imperfect included, because they see in real life, real projects are messy, right? And that is actually more appealing to see, like, hey, despite these rough patches, how did you get by? And even show your weekly learning and what you solved. One, by doing it frequent enough, it keeps people top of mind. And two, it also shows that you're staying abreast of what's happening, right? Most engineers, it's just the nature of it, hide their work privately. They don't like to share. They have fewer inbound opportunities because, well, if people don't know you exist, how are they going to reach out to you, right? And nowadays, I would say there's a short window because building a brand is still easier. Now AI content in the models and is so accessible to everyone that you could see right now AI content is basically flooding the social media out there, right? So the noise and the AI slop is increasing. So it's going to be a lot harder to show the signal from the noise. So it's much easier now to build that up, to establish yourself later when you can still be heard instead of a sea of AI generated stuff that in the future where it's going to be hard for them to distinguish you as a real signal from the noise there. And the other thing, start now, right? Right now, it's like going to the gym. You go right now, you're not going to see results today, but if you go tomorrow, you're still not going to see results. But over time, it compounds. And at the end, you'll have a massive advantage because at one point you're like, oh, wow, you see the work that comes up, your body of work. You're just not going to see it at the end, at the very beginning. But at the end, you're going to have a massive advantage over everyone else who waits to say, okay, I'm going to start now, right? And your brand, creates leverage from yourself because they're coming specifically to you, not just job, right? Because if you know that you're big enough and people know who you are, they have this perception, or they know that you're sought out after, so they have to actually compete for you. In this case, you want to stop chasing opportunities and you want opportunities to come to you. That's what the power of having an actual personal brand does. One of the main questions that come up is, does formal education even matter anymore? Well, does it actually matter? Because AI tools are everywhere now, right? So for me, I got a degree in computer science, and I would say that was more for validation and not necessarily for learning. And the thing is, when I got it, I graduated with honors. It was a specialization in AI and machine learning. And I got it mainly because I was already working for years in AI, and then I was starting an AI company. And part of the validation is that, to show the credentials that, okay, let me actually get a degree despite of all the things that I had. Now, the thing is about it, I would say I learned most of it by actually working on the real problems. That's what taught me most of my skills. And it was not really that degree itself didn't actually teach me. I don't think I've encountered anything in any of the classes that I haven't seen before, right? So which goes to show you that you can actually learn this stuff without actually getting a formal education of it. Now, do you need one? That's going to depend on what you're doing. If you're trying to work in academia and you're going to be learning machine learning models, then yeah, you're going to need to have a degree to work in that world. But I've worked with other people that had connections to, let's say, local businesses, and they're like, okay, well, this company needs to be able to build a website, answer people's calls and respond to them really quickly, and actually schedule appointments and whatnot. And we were able to build out an AI solution for them using existing machine learning models, and they deliver on that. Now, do they care if you actually have a degree? No, it doesn't matter in that case, right? So in general, there's no degree required for AI engineering, at least not for now, and there's no PhD needed to build this stuff, right? So which means that you could pick it up as long as you're able to solve the problem that people are looking for. That's what matters, right? So what education does give, like I mentioned before, it's like what you want to be able to have is like to be able to learn fast, and like that's a meta skill, like because that's not even specific to this field, that's in any field. What to be able to learn things really quickly and adapt it really quickly. In this case, you want to have the first principles that you learn, the main things, and be able to apply it to a real application in real life. We not want to go down, let's say, a YouTube rabbit hole where you're just learning things for the sake of learning it and not actually applying it, right? And I just mentioned here the meta skills that travels through all types of shifts. Even when you learn something, even if you got a degree and you learn it, the next year, the next month, actually the way things go right now, literally the next week, a new model comes out and it changes everything, right? The tech changes so quickly, right? And the industry shifts so quickly. That's why learning fast and adapting is the real meta skill that you need to learn. And you might have to do a career reinvention of things. As of last year, a lot of people were focusing on software engineering. And then this year, a lot of people are focused on like vibe coding, which is like a subset that will help you fill out a lot of the code. And that is one of the skill sets that is actually pretty helpful for you to build out. And that might actually lead to other career, I guess, reinvention and whatnot in it. So, and the thing is about it is that reinvention feels like you're starting over, because essentially you are, in a sense. I did it personally. I started off as like a 3D artist, then I became a technical director, then like a supervisor. I was a supervisor for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem film. And then I went into AI. And that feeling never leaves of like always starting over. But if you stay stagnant, nothing will really protect you. And even the past work and your past credentials do not protect you, right? So learning fast plus implementing, that's how you stay relevant. And the main thing, the bottom line is, if you want to stay relevant and you want to stay, people still reach out to you, is to solve real problems and repeatedly do that. That's why you have to keep learning and be able to deliver and get to the finish line. Here's your action plan. Step 1, work with AI. Find repetitive weekly tasks, build AI workflows for them. Find something that half the time, that basically halves your time, find 3 to 5 tasks that this actually is required, or that you see an improvement of it, right? And reinvest that time that you save into higher value activities, right? Step 2, deep AI implementation, right? Now build AI into actual products, integrate models into the actual system, solve real business problems. That's the main thing. We want to solve a real problem so people actually care. And the demand is exploding in AI engineering. But as long as you're actually solving real business problems, then people will actually listen. Step 3, proof in public. Basically, show what you're doing, document your learning and your projects, post once or twice weekly. So, stay top of mind. People are seeing the progress. And over time, you're going to have a body of work with, you have followers, people seeing that stuff. And then when the time comes, when they need to see that solution, they'll think you'll be top of mind. And step 4, domain plus AI. So whatever domain you're in right now, that is actually your superpower. Use your existing domain and background, because you know how things are supposed to work, what success look like, what is the actual final outcome, right? It's a rare intersection, and that's where the higher money is, because they're like, okay, we need to use AI, but nobody knows our industry. But if you know that industry and you combine it, that you could become that leader in that, right? that combination leads to basically headhunting. That's exactly what headhunters look for. They're looking for specialized people that solve this problem, and it's hard to find that intersection. So remember here, the future is humans plus AI. It's not humans versus AI. Pretty much there's going to be a widening gap between people who are adapting AI versus the ones who are not. And I'm seeing this monthly, and I've seen this in other industry in computer graphics where I can remember during the Disney time, I worked with some people at Disney, and when they're doing the film Chicken Little, they decided to go 3D. And the animators who decided that they didn't want to learn it, they no longer had a job at the end of it because they refused to learn that computer animation went from traditional 2D hand-drawn to 3D. This is another example. You want to adapt the new style or else you won't be relevant, right? And the old software engineering, that is fading, right? Basically, you want to use AI engineering, and that is basically starting right now, right? So, and most people are unprepared for it. So you want to be able to use software engineering, so still learn all the fundamentals of it, but also figure out how to use AI to implement that, right? And you have this choice to actually pick the side of the shift, whether you agree with it or not, because if you're not riding the wave, you're going to be swept under it.